All right. So last night there was a bit of a public hullabaloo between Mark Kern, IGN, two IGN editors, as well as myself and IGN. Mark and I on one side, IGN on the other, and what started as basically a tweet by Justin Davis saying, prediction. By the way, he's a senior manager of IGN. Okay, so. Prediction: World of Warcraft will be the biggest, most high-profile example of gamers not actually wanting the thing they want. Mark replies, remember this tweet from an IGN staffer when WoW Classic goes live. Now, we already have a good idea on what the interest is in WoW Classic based on some other servers, but we also have a good idea that there are certain people, influencers online, that will probably be promoting this heavily, including some former WoW streamers that may be interested in coming back. As we know, today influencers, if Apex Legends tells us anything, influencers are extraordinarily powerful in terms of what people watch and what people play. You saw early on when EA had purchased Ninja and Dr. Disrespect, everyone was talking about Apex Legends being the next Fortnite, taking down Fortnite, but that never happened because they got bored with the game, they moved on, and so did the overwhelming majority of consumers. Then Mark Kern goes on to say, this tweet of his won't age well either, further cementing mainstream game journos as the least qualified people on the planet to cover games. WoW Classic won't eclipse current WoW subs, but there's more than enough interest to make it very viable and profitable for Blizzard. This is what I told Mike, Blizzard's then CEO, when convincing him to do it, and I stand by it now. And we see Justin Davis getting in here. Thanks for sharing your perspective. I wish you didn't use your platform to personally attack me and my coworkers, though. My feed is just my personal thoughts. IGN's mainstream journal has a very positive impression of WoW Classic right now. Well, this is the problem, right? You put where you work in your byline on Twitter to get that precious blue check mark. So you don't necessarily get to say, well, this is just separate. So then Justin Davis obviously was taking heat. I'm just bummed to see you specifically call me out. My work, my career, my experience like this. I don't consider my experience in fandom less valid than YouTubers or whomever you consider outside of my mainstream perspective. Regardless, good luck on the run-up to launch. This is, of course, Justin Davis having a little mini meltdown and talking about his feelings. And look, I mean, I guess you don't really have that right anymore. I mean, right or wrong, people don't want to hear about how you feel. Then you had James Duggan of IGN get in there to say, this is a great example of how folks in 2019 actively seek out narratives that conform to their worldview and nothing else. Mark could have read the panel that I stayed up till 3 a.m. that I stayed up till 3 a.m. working on. To which Mark replied, that tweet had nothing to do with you or your article. This is a great example of a games journalist fishing for stuff to attack from their platform. Exactly. One of your staffers tweeted about gamers being wrong about WoW Classic. I responded to the tweet, which never mentioned you or your article. You deliberately inserted yourself into it and made a, quote, story about how I put hate on your article. That's why nobody trusts you. James would go on to defend himself to say, the thing about sweeping condemnations of people based on their profession is that they tend to target more than one person. Yeah, well, your entire profession is widely mistrusted. And you could go on further on to say that, James gets really angry about, Mark's characterization. It's an ad hominem and sweeping condemnation of a group of people who work to inform customers. And we're going to get back to that. It's the go-to line to invalidate any opinion you don't agree with. It's garbage, and I'm tired of seeing it. And this is referring to, I believe, the games journalist thing. So James injected himself here. When I saw this going on, well, I can't resist to get into a little Twitter drama. So I injected myself. James and I had a back and forth in which I was probably a little too spicy in. It was late at night, and maybe maybe he was trying to be genuine, but I just don't believe it after I view his Twitter history. Eventually, I retweet him and said, "This is fair. Would you like to come on my live stream tonight to discuss your takes? I'll be 100% fair." And if you've ever watched me live stream with other people, I'm very polite, courteous. I don't dogpile people. I encourage people to be respectful. So, and I've debated people that have strong opinions, negative opinions about me, and I've been very polite on them too. He goes on to say, "Whether I intend to or not, I'd be speaking on behalf of IGN. I need to clear it with my superiors first and make sure they're comfortable with it. Tonight's too soon, but I'll let you know one way or another tomorrow." Okay, fine. That's reasonable. I get that he'd have to clear it with the bosses. That sucks as a content creator to be, limited in that way, but I get it. But then almost immediately after, he goes on to say, "After brushing up on your content, the answer is no. I point blank don't trust you to be 100% fair. I appreciate the offer nonetheless." So obviously, the Twitterverse took their victory lap. But I mean, you have even Boogie getting in on it. Freaking Boogie, man. He retweets me. Then James Duggan inserts himself into another conversation about me from Boogie. To do what? Stir the pot? He goes, "I'm having trouble getting through to him as well." To me or Jeremy, Boogie says. Jerbear. By the way, don't call me Jerbear, dude. And then Boogie goes on to say, "Been barking up that tree for 3 years. He's pretty much set in his ways. His audience rewards him for it too, so maybe he is correct. Who knows?" Oh my God. First of all, I'm not always correct, okay? But I am always honest. And that is something that I can point to several people who had things to say about me yesterday, not necessarily having a very pearly white past about telling the truth. So now that I've caught you up on everything, I want to tell you, and if James, I assume you watch this, I'm going to be, these are the main reasons why people don't respect your field. People don't respect the people in it. People don't respect the company that you choose to work for. I fully acknowledge that, of course, there are good eggs. There are probably more good eggs in games, quote, journalism than there aren't. The problem is the bad eggs are so bad and so consistently promoted and not ousted by their own community that most of the games journalism community seems to be complicit by default. The concept, you have IGN. Okay, well, you had one dude literally plagiarizing videos from YouTubers. Yes, he apologized and was fired, but I don't remember seeing a lot of journals come out to disavow and distance himself. It was a lot of silence. Games journalists, in my opinion, you say they're here to inform people. I disagree that, we agree that is their job, but we disagree that that's what they do. In a world where we have access journalism, where everyone on the outside knows the deal, where you're not going to get early access to Bethesda or Ubisoft or EA unless you play their game, then we automatically know that you are not working on behalf of the consumer at all. In fact, you're walking a fine line of pretending that you care about the consumer, maybe in some cases genuinely caring, but overall, you are beholden to the corporate media, the corporations. That's who you really work for. That's who buys your ad space. That's who gets you review copies. That's who invites you to press events. That's who flies you around the country. That's who feeds you. Everybody on the outside knows this. Now, there's an obvious bias as well. Because of this access journalism, it puts a specter over every word you say online and off. We know that IGN and GameSpot are taking money from these companies. We know that their mere existence relies almost entirely on access journalism and outrage hate bait. So we know, even it's hard to tell if you're telling the truth or not. And for that reason, you'll never be, quote, one of us. Back in the good old days, in the 90s, you knew they were ads, but they weren't trying to pretend that they weren't. You rented Nintendo Power it was or you bought Nintendo Power, it was basically a giant ad for Nintendo games, all right? But now we have social media and we have all these other things where you have games journalists who are always constantly saying, I'm one of you, I'm here to protect you. Maybe some people mean it, but that's not what we see on the outside looking in. And again, when you say you work for the consumer, that is verifiably false. Most news outlets like GameSpot or IGN or Polygon or Kotaku essentially read like marketing arms, either marketing arms for big corporations or social justice political websites. That's the two main datas that we either have games journalism websites that are pure fluff, which is what I would put IGN or GameSpot into. And then you would have websites that are overly political, which would be like Polygon or Kotaku. Both websites are absolutely capable and have had good articles this week. They consistently will have good articles, but it's those terrible ones that will continually chase them and follow them around forever. I mean, if I say 7 out of 10, 7.8 out of 10, too much water, everybody knows I'm referring to an IGN review of a Pokemon game that took place in a water world where the reviewer made the level of water, the amount of water in the game, a con. I mean, at first you could say if Angry Video Game Nerd was saying that or something like that, okay, it's a funny meme, but this is like literally what was presented by that outlet. You talk about GameSpot, for example, putting out a Days Gone review, all right, where the author of that review had been very vocal about there weren't enough black zombies, even though the game itself narrated exactly why there weren't any black zombies, okay? They gave that game the same score as Anthem, which continues to be a broken mess that almost everybody who bought is completely disappointed by. GameSpot also gave Days Gone a 5 and Anthem a 6. So you had GameSpot give Days Gone a 5, a worse score than Anthem, and you have IGN give Days Gone the same score. Pathetic. I mean, you're talking about a game that average user score is an 8, and the Metascore is a 7, all right? So 6.5. I'm not saying the game should have been a 9, but I'm saying it was very obvious why that particular game's journal appeared to be tanking the review scores, all right? Now, other issues, okay? None of this, by the way, none of what I've said up until this point has anything to do with one of the biggest problems with games journalists, and that is their injection of personal political beliefs into games media. This is every game must have some political message, or there isn't enough representation, or there isn't enough this, or there isn't enough that, and it's a gamer's fault, and white men are bad, and it's another gruff white male protagonist, and this is bad. All of this is trash. Just get rid of it. All right. This is not video games journalism. This is political propaganda. That's all it is. It's activism masquerading as journalism. The two things are not even close to the same. And that has a huge specter around the games journalist world. All right. When you choose, for example, you say to me, I'm an individual. I work at IGN, and just because I work at IGN doesn't mean I agree with everybody. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. However, what I would say is that's like telling me, oh, I love tigers. I'm a huge fan of tigers. I love them. If I could spend, I write about them. So I also went to work for a big game hunting company. I don't view GameSpot or IGN as adding positive to the conversation at all. They may have specks of light here and there, but largely, there is an innumerable amount of people with blue checks next to their name on Twitter who work at IGN or GameSpot will constantly lament gamers in a negative light. We just talked about your fellow journalists writing articles about how Division 2 is like Tucker Carlson. What? Or how Barrett's voice in Final Fantasy VII is offensive. I mean, this is not games journalism. This is activism, okay? So if you want to be an activist, all right, call yourself that. But you're not a journalist. And that is a huge reason why people don't like games journalists. And not to mention, in the past, not you in particular, James, who I'm talking to here, but journalists have been caught red-handed scheming behind the scenes to write articles to disparage gamers. Remember the whole "gamers are dead" meme? They were caught in the in the Game Journal Pros private group. Collusion makes you look bad. Yes, you didn't do it, but again, this is just another negative mark for the game's journalism field. Now, you might say, okay, well, what do you want? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Well, I'd like you to stop writing hate bait for clicks. We're sick of it. We're over it. Look at the other websites that have been trying to survive on that. They're failing left and right. If you don't get over that and you provide something interesting for people to read, you're not going to survive. All right. 2, what do you do with politics? Well, it's pretty simple to me. Somebody asked me on Twitter, well, how would you like to see it handled? I would like to see it not exist. I would like to see, if you want to write about politics, then you can write about politics on a political, you can go work for CNN or BuzzFeed or whatever. But if you want to write about politics and you want me to take IGN seriously or GameSpot seriously, it's just not going to work. I think you can acknowledge certain things existing. You can acknowledge certain hot button issues. I don't think that's where a lot of the problems started. Where it started was when these writers who have earned nothing in their life, all right, started sticking their finger in people's faces and telling that they were better than them, or that they were doing wrong, or that, white men are oppressive, or all of this stuff. Okay, you can comment on a political angle in a video game, but I think editorializing it, in particular using it to disparage gamers, is obviously where it goes wrong. So I would like to see politics covered by IGN or GameSpot, or Polygon or Kotaku at a bare minimum, and really be looking at how can I do this without passing judgment on people. I've had no problem doing that. Exclusivelygames.com is doing very well, and it's not presenting any of the political issues. Sure, maybe I'll pass on some hate clicks and some hate retweets, but at the end of the day, that site is more viable because it's not spending all day trying to divide their audience. You've got to know that, if you look at the United States, you could draw a line right down the middle of gamers. Whether you like it or not, there's a large percentage of the gaming community that might be conservative and might be liberal and everywhere in between. So when you start poking at that community to get rage clicks or to tell people how to be or how, why they're not a good person. I mean, this is coming from a games journalist. Like, a games journalist literally took what happened in New Zealand and spun it to be about gamers. Like that. What I want to see is I want to see you, James Duggan. I want to see other people with blue check marks that work at GameSpot and IGN. How about you defend the gaming community once in a while instead of sitting there passive? Because when your fellow cohorts do that stuff, it hurts everybody. It hurts you. It hurts all the gamers. It hurts the advertisers. It hurts this entire economy. And in an age where there is probably 1,000 gaming YouTube channels who make more than $100,000 a year. All right, let me put this out to you, James, and other journalists who say they're not like the others. Okay, there is probably more than 1,000 gaming YouTube channels out there that are making 6 figures. Why would you ever go work for IGN and GameSpot? Start building your own social media following. Sure, work there to pay the bills, but get out there, create your own content, put your face in front of a camera, and stand behind your decisions. I think that is a smarter career move anyway, because these websites are not going to be around very long, and they're going to constantly be cycling through employees. You see it. You see the writing on the wall. There's a reason all these game journalists are particularly on edge lately, and this is the only solution for you. If you really are, quote, one of the good ones, For example, the YouTube community will embrace you and you'll make more money than you ever would working for IGN or GameSpot, and you could talk about what you want to talk about. Or if you choose to stay working for these companies and you want the community to trust you, we want to see you stand up for the gaming community once in a while and not just allow your cohorts to dump on us for hate clicks all the time. I mean, Gamergate was over forever ago. Can we stop with those headlines? Can we stop saying PewDiePie is an evil man? Can we just stop with all of this? I think if you did just half of what I've suggested in this video, you'd get a lot more respect. I hope those watching this video were entertained. I look forward to the lively discussion in the comment section down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.